Thank you, Mr. President. I'm proud to follow my colleague from New Jersey and others of my esteemed colleagues, the ranking member on the Finance Committee, Senator Wyden and Senator Schumer, simply to make a few very starkly apparent points about the situation in Puerto Rico. It affects not only the 3.5 million Americans in Puerto Rico, and they are Americans, citizens of the United States, but also the financial markets, the bondholders, citizens who depend on the viability of our financial system across the country and potentially around the globe. There is a reason for bankruptcy laws. They try to make the best of a bad situation. Bankruptcy is never pleasant or welcome. The reason for the bankruptcy laws is to create an orderly, structured process for avoiding the chaotic and costly race to the courtroom and then endless litigation that simply consumes scarce resources. And that's what will happen if bankruptcy protection is not provided in some way to the municipal entities and governmental functions and others in Puerto Rico. By a quirk of history, Puerto Rico is not covered by Chapter 9. That quirk of history could be extraordinarily costly, not only in dollars and cents, but in the humanitarian catastrophe that threatens the people of Puerto Rico in depriving them of essential services, energy, medical care, all kinds of very necessary governmental functions that may be impossible if there is no orderly resolution to its financial situation. We can debate here how Puerto Rico arrived at this place. We should learn from history so we don't repeat it. But right now, this crisis demands action, and that action has to come now. Many of us remember when New York City faced similar financial straits. The headline in some of the tabloids, one said, "Ford to city drop dead," reference to President Ford and his lack of action when New York City was in dire fiscal trouble. The nation would not let New York City drop dead. It should not let Puerto Rico drop dead financially. It should not send the message to Puerto Rico, drop dead. For this chamber to say to Puerto Rico, drop dead, is absolutely intolerable and unacceptable, just as it would be if we were to say to the people of Alaska, represented so ably by the presiding officer, in a similar situation, drop dead. Or to the people of Oregon or Connecticut or any of our states or municipal entities. We know we came to the aid of Detroit and Stockton and other municipalities when they needed it. That message, drop dead Puerto Rico, is antithetical to the democracy that we represent here. Puerto Rico can and must reform itself, but no amount of long-term reform will address that short-term reality that Puerto Rico cannot pay its current debts when due. That's the definition of insolvency, the inability to pay debts as they come due. The denial of Chapter 9 will not create more money that makes Puerto Rico solvent and enables it to pay those debts. The only question is whether this reality results in a chaotic and costly default with nobody winning except the legions of creditors' attorneys who will spend years, countless billable hours, fighting each other, litigating through the state or Commonwealth courts, through federal courts, through courts of appeal, maybe to the United States Supreme Court, over years, maybe over decades. The alternative is an orderly restructuring, which serves the public interest as well as the interests of our fellow Americans in Puerto Rico. And it is an orderly, deliberate, rational process that only Congress can provide. The actions in the long term that are necessary in the interests of economic justice as well as fairness and the welfare of our fellow citizens in Puerto Rico include addressing issues relating to Medicare and the Earned Income Tax Credit and other obligations that we have recognized for citizens of the country that live in the 50 states. The financial gymnastics have enabled Puerto Rico so far to avoid the chaos and enable Puerto Rico to avoid going over a cliff that in effect is irremediable. But we need to be very blunt and real. Those financial gymnastics cannot be sustained or continued indefinitely. The financial somersaults and headstands must end. The prospect of a humanitarian catastrophe within a United States territory is very real and immediate. Congress can act to prevent it. It can choose not to do so. But the responsibility is ours if there is no action. I urge the members of this body, our colleagues, to give Puerto Rico the respect and our citizens and fellow Americans there the respect that they deserve and approve the bill that we have offered. Thank you, Mr. President.